Cindy was bringing up a lot of different topics, and one was about dreaming and astral plane. And dreaming is something we do to create our future. We go into, there's like lots of different rooms, and it's like whatever you want to learn, you go into these different rooms and you attract people. So whatever you're going to do in your day, you attract different people. They go in these rooms specifically, and they're like learning chambers. So whatever you're going to do in that day, depending on how big your energy is going to be or what you're going to do. And then the astral plane is like you're searching for something. You're going out and you're sitting in your body and you're wanting to find or see something. So people go into the astral plane, and that's where there's like lots of dimensions. There's lots of different kinds of beings. And the things you attract sometimes can look in your mind and project to you and say, yeah, you found me or whatever. So it's quite a different two different kinds of reality. And I was telling Cindy, instead of going out, like go inside yourself, because inside yourself, somewhere you have the answer. And if you're going in, you're going to find it in here. But when you go out there, something is going to show up and try to take you in different directions. So we're trying to define astral plane and spiritual realm or dream time.
I was trying to get the difference. I didn't know. So I was questioning Joe. What is the difference between when we go to sleep and we go into the dream world, and then the difference between the dream world and the astral plane? And he had some really good distinctions between the two, that they're two different places. And how we determine which one we go to depends on our level of consciousness or awareness. So if you're really working at solving an issue in your life, you're creating your reality, you'll go into the dream realm, or that etheric plane, he called it. And like he said, they're like different rooms you'll go into, and you're going to create your answer. You're going to create your life through the dream world, you going into those different planes, the etheric plane. Okay. But then if you're very unconscious and you're sort of fear driven or pulled, as an example of fear, and when you go to sleep, you can go into the astral plane, and it will, you'll attract things. What was none? There was a different word. One was creating, and then the other one was,
see, I always do this. I channel all this stuff to her, and then she wants me to use one specific word out of this half hour of talking. I'm like, what word do you want me to use? So it's sometimes hard to go back and try to find the words I was using. But yeah, it's really interesting, because I always try to tell people, use your dreams. You're doing it anyways. You're sleeping anywhere 6 to 8 hours. Take things into your dreams. Start being the one who creates. Because it's really interesting when you're in dreams and when you know everything and you're watching yourself, all this stuff's going on. You're like, ooh, I know this. And you're like watching yourself, and you're watching all these people and things are going on, and you're fully aware of what you're creating. This is what the universe wants you to do when you're doing spiritual stuff. It's like really becoming conscious of all these different dynamics that are going on in life and everything. So while you're inside the dream, you can become conscious that you're creating this, you're getting answers, you're doing things, because the subconscious is like it's like a theater. It's like a stage where you go on a stage and you're acting out. Say you're Juliet and Romeo sort of thing. You're out on stage and you're doing this act. So it's like that. But when you become conscious, you actually start creating, you start knowing all these things. And so when you get up in your day, you're going to like already know what's going to happen. And I do this all the time. People are like, you ever get tired of that? And I'm like, no, why? Why should anybody get tired? So really being an active participant in the dream time, because the universe wants you to do that. And when you get to a certain point where you're like a master or a teacher, one of these really high people, it's like you're always walking in a dream, like you're always manifesting and creating everything in the moment. You ever have those days where you're just like, you're so aware, and whatever you're thinking, it just happens. You're just like, oh, that was cool. How did I do it? And that's where you're really becoming conscious of these other levels. And the universe is trying to step you in there, and it's trying to see how you're mastering your mind. What are you really doing? Because you can distort and change things. I know a lot of people, when they go into dream time and they discover the reality of dream time, they try to go back and change things. And they start doing this, and then their lives start getting altered, and it goes really, really crazy. Because in dreams, you're attracting things and they're giving you answers and they're showing you stuff. And you can see how you can move through them faster. But people will go back and start to dream over and say, I don't like this in the dream, so I'm changing it. I don't like that in the dream, so I'm changing it. And then they get to the end, they're like, oh, there's a couple things in there, and they'll go back and they'll change it again. So they distorted the whole reality, because some of these things are really, really important to experience. Some of these things are really important to allow to come in. Some of them go into the future, and sometimes we'll see a person in a dream maybe we may not like, or there's a distortion there, and later that person may be somebody that's so important into the future. And some people will try to get rid of that. They'll try to release all of these things instead of following and recognizing what deeper is in everything. And like I say, it's our subconscious giving us the information that's creating the theater and the movie, and we're attracting all these people to play Romeo or Marquipio or whoever you want to call the actors are in your dreams. So we draw a lot of things in, and it's like, what do we want to activate? Okay. Some guy pulling out a sword and chasing us or whatever. So it's really, really interesting when you start seeing from another higher perspective, and then realizing you're awake, living it every day. After you get up, you're like, whoa, okay, I know what's going to go on today.
So then that's the term, living the dream. And that's a conscious choice and action you're aware of, and you're moving through those, the tests, the teachers, and you're very sort of hyper aware that you have the ability and the knowledge that you need to navigate whatever's in front of you, something like that. And that's like what I labeled, like, I like the box just to put it in for while I'm figuring it out. And the box is called the etheric plane. So, but it's a higher level of consciousness, and how Ramtha says that consciousness and energy, consciousness is an energy, and then that creates your reality. So wherever your consciousness is, it will vibrate the energy of that. And then you're going to experience that as your reality. I mean, like, it's pretty simple to put it there, but if you really question it and you go deeper into it, what are you creating? So, and then that's where the fear comes in, because there's definitely lots of fear out there, and they're all like opportunities and choices that you can go down these rabbit holes, and you can create your reality according to the fear that is being presented to you.
Because fear is a teacher, and the universe uses it, because we came from a higher realm where we only know love, light, and we know everything. We have all the answers, and we choose to leave the angelic realms and take on these crazy lives as human beings. Like I always say, when I was an angel, I was insane to create the life of Joe Greenland. I'm like, I should have slapped myself a few times and went like, come on, get real here. It's like, what are you doing? But here I am living it out. And as these things go on, and you start seeing these bigger pictures. And the fear is the biggest thing, because if there's a fear there and you can really go into it, you can release it all. Like Cindy this morning was realizing the matrix she's in, because I was trying to tell her at any moment something can go on, and all of a sudden we're in the car and we're driving for 5 hours out of this area, and whatever we have here is not relevant anymore. When we get there, at that moment, that's what we're going to manifest and create. Mm-hmm. And so when she's like, oh, then I'm holding myself in this matrix, I'm like, yeah, there's certain things in the 3D, like we're talking about money and other things. If we're going into 4 and 5D, then maybe money is not really going to be something there. So if we're putting so much into it here, mm-hmm. then maybe there's something we're not incorporating or recognizing, allowing to come in to open bigger doors. Yeah. Because I was trying to tell her, whatever is going to be happy. So if the universe showed you you're going to have your cabin in the future, I told Cindy, well, focus on that cabin. Because as you're focusing and you finally get to that cabin, you're going to have every last thing that's going to allow you to happy, sustain, to provide whatever it is. You're going to have all of that abundance, and everything is going to be there. because this is where you're going to be manifesting and creating in the future. But everything around us is trying to tell us, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I'm like, if you're meant to be blessed, everything is going to keep coming to you. And you're just living your abundant life. I'm abundant. Everything I have, I'm abundant. And so Cindy could start seeing this matrix, and she's like, oh, I'm holding myself in this. And I was telling her things, and she says, well, for right now, like, I'm good with this. And I'm like, okay, yep. All right, we're good with it. I mean, that's where everything's at.
Well, not necessarily that I'm good with it, it's like how it's like, how do you know to ask the question, or how do you know to go through that door? Because everything that you have programmed into yourself through your habits and through your beliefs and through your memories, it has formed what Joe described there, and I did it with my fingers. It's like it forms a grid, and the energy of the possibilities of the larger answer of the question can't get through your grid of your habits, your patterns, your beliefs, and your memories. And so the more you're holding on to those old ways, the tighter your grid gets, and then the energy of the future can't get through your grid. Now, when you start recognizing that you're the one that's creating it, and you're holding yourself in this one creation, like our home, and all our comforts and needs that we have right here in this place that might be a volatile place to live in, for example. So but I feel safe in my home, so I'm just going to stay here. Everything's good. I've created it to be this way. And you've closed your grid down really tight. But when you start to realize, hey, I don't need any of this stuff, and I will be ready to move in a moment's notice. So when you start like expanding that thought and that questioning, your grid loosens up, and it starts to let energy come through. And then you can see that bigger picture. When that loosening is happening, it is scary. Like, it is nervous. Like, I feel butterflies in my stomach, and I start getting anxious where, like, I just need to move my body. I want to go for a walk. I want to go for a run, because it's like avoiding this really big answer that's being presented to me on a platter right in front of me. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to see it yet. So then I like close my grid down and say, no, I'm good just where I'm at right now. So that's how I experience it. And that's how I visually see it happening when new information is coming to you, and you're going to start going down that possibility. You loosen that grid.
In my mind, they keep taking me. Years ago, I ended up meeting this ex-nun. I didn't know she was a nun at the time. She was doing psychic readings and that. And I ended up befriending her for a couple of years. And she grew up in England, and she met Sufi masters. She met Tibetan monks and other kinds of things. And they taught her really, really lots of stuff. But while she was in the Roman Catholic Church too, they taught her really, really lots of stuff about spirituality. And she had access to a lot of ancient knowledge and things. So certain things happened, and she ended up out of that. And then she decided to go into the psychic world and spirituality and that. So I come into her life, and I just channel stuff. I just tell her this stuff. I'm just like, oh, this is going to go on today. And she's looking at me, and it's like, okay. And then it would happen in the day. And at one point, a few months into hanging out with her, she got really, really mad at me. She's like, who's your teacher? And I'm like, what? She's like, who's your teacher? And I'm pointing like up there, them. And she's like, no. There's got to be somebody here on earth that's teaching you. I'm like, no, up there. Whatever I ask, they give me the answer. They show me things. It just comes. And she's like, no, you had to have a teacher. She says, I've had 5 teachers. I had a Sufi master. I've had 3 Buddhist monks from Tibet train me. And I had this teacher, that teacher. And she's telling me all these teachers. And I'm like, but why don't you just ask there? It's like everything you want to know is there. And that's all I do. It's like whatever I want to know, I just ask. And it just comes to me. So we're sitting in her apartment one day, and we're sitting there. And I'm just sitting, and all of a sudden the energy starts getting a little strange. I'm like, okay, you guys are doing something here. And I thought she was going to see it. And I'm like, can you feel the energy? She's like, no. And I'm like, are you sure? Because you're saying you're psychic. You're saying you're tuned into all this stuff. So why aren't you feeling these frequency changes? And then all of a sudden I could see these different grid lines, like on her walls, on her floor, on her ceiling. And there were just different kinds of lines. And I was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. And I was like in this matrix. And I was looking around and I was telling her and I was staring. I'm like, can't you see that over there? And she's like, just screaming at me. I'm like, going nuts, right? And she can't see. And I'm like, but you keep telling me you're plugged in and angels tell you things and show you stuff, but you can't see none of this. And she would just yell at me and everything. And I'm like trying to help her to understand God makes everything happen. You don't need teachers. You don't need all these things. You ask the universe and you believe you're going to get the answers. You're going to get shown. And this is really cool. And this is where that understanding the dream time and being the master of your mind. And Cindy realized it's the knowledge. Because she was reading Rantha this morning and the knowledge came and she's like, oh, it's the knowledge. And I'm always saying this, the more knowledge you have, the bigger you're going to expand your mind, the bigger the reality is, the more you're going to be the master of how you walk in and out of every day and how you are the ones who are all making this happen. And the universe is going to really, really make these things go on in your life. And it was really nice for Cindy to plug in and put all those pieces together this morning. I'm like, ooh, she got something really big. So, yeah.
And one of the things that Ramtha said is make known the unknown. And that's where the desire to learn new information comes, within us. And do you have the desire to know the unknown? And if you do, what are you asking for? Like, are you asking for that as a simple question you can ask up there, how Joe would say? It's like, okay, I want to know the unknown. And you're going to start to have different experiences or material will cross your path. And it's you to, how strong is your desire to become aware of the unknown and make it known, which becomes that knowledge into wisdom.
And I think you have to really recognize the fact that Trinity, like the mind, body, soul, because the three of them are like a matrix. They're a grid. So the solid is the body, the nerves and all the other energies that are running through the system with the organs and that. They're part of the matrix. And then there's the mind. So like the body is the dense, the nerve endings and all the things going on in your auric field and your chakras are all part of a electrical system that sends things through. And then there's the mind. So it's like Father, what do they say? Father, Spirit, whatever, God. Like they talk about the Trinity. I forget how they say it. But these three things are us. And three of them are inside us. So if you learn how to do pulse reading, you learn how to see the dents, and then you go into the nerves. And then once you go into the nerves, you go into a deeper etheric energy where you can see how things are affecting a person's body and why this and that's out. And you can learn how to do pulse reading on your own self, where you can see into your own body and you can understand all the things you need to do to heal your own organs and energy. And one of the things sometimes in your energy, like you're doing your body, you're doing your mind, but in the nerves or the chakras and these other things, there's little energies that are stuck or plugged. And a person who can see can actually release and change that. So once the negative energy is gone, the light energy comes in and it activates and turns everything on. And there's sound frequencies. And there's different kinds of healing techniques. Like I always ask God, whatever I need to do for any human being, it's going to come through my palms. And I don't need to know what this is. So if you need to receive a symbol, or you need to receive certain kinds of energy, or you need some sort of blocks released, or you need something to open bigger, the universe is just going to allow that energy to run through me and through my palms. If you're open to receiving, it's just going to absorb into your body and your matrix, and it's going to change everything. And this is where you can do things long distance, because these energies don't know no distance. They don't know time. They don't know anything. They're very, very conscious. And if it's through the universe and you're meant to receive it, it's going to come into your energies. or an angel or something is going to bring and provide it. And when you're ready, and they're going to expand all of those spaces, and all of a sudden it comes in, you're like, ooh, this is really cool, whatever this is. And sometimes this energy is to do a whole bunch of things, but people that get stoned right away, they get high and they're like, ooh, I want to just go in this and I want to get higher, 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 instead of going, well, maybe I could just send it into my kidneys and just allow it to be in my kidneys and heal and change it. But people are like, party, party, I'm high. Watch me, man. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. And they're just stoned, and then boom, no more energy. It's like, where's that energy? And I was like, maybe it came for a whole nother purpose, and it can stay inside you and heal you. And then once that heals, it can bring you to another higher plane. But people don't factor in all these different things.
What can they do? Or what would be your recommendation for a person that's experiencing energy?
Well, that's where, for me, it's always first think of creator. If you're always going first thing to creator and to the light, it's going to activate, and it's going to get faster and faster and faster. And whatever your chakras, wherever, on whatever levels they are, you're going to tune into that frequency. So if there's this certain energy, like if mine's closing in the heart chakra, I'm just like, okay, God, is there an energy here? And I just look at everything that goes through my mind really fast. I don't argue. I never argue with what I'm being shown. Whatever people tell me in that, I just put it in the memory banks, and then I just like, okay, if that is really in there, it's just going to shift. I'm going to watch it clear. Now that energy is out, I'm not holding it. The new one comes in, my energy just goes, and it just gets bigger. And I'm like, somebody is coming to do a clearing, or they're coming to receive answers or something like that. I call in all the different spirits in that, and I fill the whole place, because some things I don't need to say or do. They're just going to absorb it. Later on, they're going to be sitting there like, oh, I got all this answers, this and that's happening. All these things are transforming, but it's like they're wearing this big cloak. And that's where it's like the dazzling white light. If you're doing that, anybody that's coming into your environment, they're going to end up absorbing that dazzling white light, and they're going to leave, and it's going to be with them for a period of time. So it's like whatever you're carrying in knowledge, wisdom, and that, people get to absorb it. That's why a lot of Chinese, they will not hug. A Buddhist monk will never hug anybody, because there's actually an energy transfer. And there's some people that know this, and when they hug you, they'll pull all your energy from you. And so the Orientals, they keep a thing this far apart, because certain people will affect their energies. And the Buddhist monk, when they're like 60, 70, 80 and that, they never touch anybody or hug anybody. And they call them living Buddhas because of the energy and the knowledge you carry. And if they decide to touch you, they can heal you instantaneously of anything. This energy comes through so powerful in their beliefs, and they're guided, and they know. And this is something really big. So with me, when I hug or I do energy in that, I ask God all the love, every last thing that belongs to that person is going to go, and it's going to stay with them for however long. I'm receiving all of mine. So whatever is mine stays with me. That's why I can like do eight clearings, and or be at a psychic fair for 12 hours clearing people's energy and fighting and warring with all kinds of stuff around me. And it just comes. And then afterwards, I'm just like, holy shit, man, shut me off. I need to go to sleep. But the energy just keeps firing. And because I don't need to take energy from anywhere. And I go to a tree, I give the tree energy, and it's going to respond and give me something in return. If I go to the water and I say a prayer and I give something to the water, it's going to give something to me. I never have to take. And same with rocks and everything. The more you start giving these things, the more you're going to feel that energy and everything coming. This is where I tell people, watch Celestian Prophecies, because there's a part in there where they're trying to teach this guy to connect with this plant, and they tell him, send it love. So he's like trying, and then eventually you see the energy go to the plant gets really excited, and its energy gets really big, and it sends energy to him. And this went on for a while, and it got really, really big, and he did something and he disconnected. But this is a truth, because when you're connected to God and you're in that love thing, the energy just grows. Everything you do is going to respond and get really, really big. And every time you connect with God, it's going to fire boom, boom, because everything comes from source. And then there's angels and all kinds of other things around to fulfill that. So whatever you're wanting somebody to receive, their guides and that will work on making sure whatever comes through. So I that's why I say I'm just conduit. And I'm just open that everybody can become me, more than me, be Jesus, Buddha, whoever they're meant to be. And I want to see everybody walking in this big light. And if you can recognize that and you start doing that, you're going to see how fast things start happening. You see an animal walking by, send it love, it's going to stop, and you're going to feel an energy come from it. You send again, and it may even decide to come up to you. It's really, really interesting when things go on.
He's on fire. I'm just going to let him continue doing what he's doing because he's obviously in the zone. So if you guys got a big question, now's the time to ask.
And that's why I like when I'm channeling, because it's just the universe and everything is coming through. And there's an energy that also, I know lots of people have told me over the years that I hypnotize them or I do something. I'm like, when I go into this channeling energy and it's coming from God, everybody's like, oh, where was I? What was going on? How come I was feeling so good? Because the universe is allowing all this to flow to everybody. They know everything that everyone needs to receive. So it just keeps flowing. And that's what I try to do in the prayer and the smudge too. I try and allow that energy to come in. And each person, if you're open, you're going to receive. That's where it's like, okay, do I have a fear here? And I'm blocking, I'm not allowing that full potential of everything to come in. Because I've seen when Ian has been fully in it and he receives and he gets really big stuff. I've seen it with Mercedes, Jackie, all of you in one way or another. Like the last mini clearing I did for Banya, she didn't want it to end. I was like 15. She's like, oh my God, I feel so good. She's like, I don't want this to end. But then I had to go into the next one. Bella did the same thing. She's like, whatever this is, I don't want it to stop. Like, I just want it to go on. And that's where the universe just comes in, and it's not you, it's something way bigger. And this is where if you really, really understand and love it and be humble to it, it's going to transform you into this light being. It's going to make you a Jesus. It's going to make you Kuan Yin. It's going to make you White Buffalo Calf Woman, whatever spiritual divine being, it's going to make you that. And this is where I try to be open for the biggest in every possible way of my prayers and what I do for people, because it doesn't belong to me. It never will. It belongs to everyone. And when we all have this, man, imagine what this world is going to be like. It's going to be freaking awesome.